I'm Joe.
I'm Dennis, and this is Pulp Science Fiction. We got Penn back.
Yep, I'm here, Penn.
Yep, and he's probably going to become a regular for us Pulp Science Fiction.
Probably.
Alright, so today we are reviewing Thor, The Dark World, or Thor 2, as whatever you want to call it. So, yeah, Brian, would you like to explain some stuff for a sec?
Well, coming back from the Avengers, Thor is definitely an oddball, because unlike all the other characters, he's based off of a northern myth, or whatever you want to say.
Norse mythology.
Norse mythology. It's all his words anyway.
Pretty much, yeah.
So, compared to Thor in the Avengers, it's definitely a step in the right direction in many ways. It tries to be its own thing. It tries to connect the plot between Thor and the Avengers to Thor 2. And, yeah, that's all I can really say for it right now.
Yeah, this is, personally, I just want to say right off the bat, I think we can all agree that this is better than both Thor and maybe with the exception of Dennis Iron Man 3.
Oh, yeah. So it definitely improved on the first Thor movie, and it was one of the best Marvel movies that I've seen in general. I think it did a really good job not only capturing the really fun, sort of gleeful, huge-scale action spirit that I think all the Marvel movies try to embody. This one really did that well. It balanced a fine line between hilarious humor and some genuine emotional stuff, and the whole thing was visually pretty darn dazzling, almost across the board. It was really impressive overall, and I would say the most fun I've had in a single movie this year. So, I mean, just sitting there enjoying it, not going to expect anything super intellectual or deep from it, but, I mean, for what it is, I'd say it pretty much hit the mark on the spot.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Dennis?
Yeah, I also agree. This movie is very well made. I really enjoyed it. Like Joe said, for the exception, I did enjoy Iron Man 3 a lot. It's not that I don't like it as much. I like it equally. I just think that they're both really good movies. But Thor, I'm just gonna call it Thor 2 to be short.
Yeah.
Thor 2 was a really nice movie. It messes with your emotions to death. And that final fight, because let's be honest, every Marvel movie has a final fight. The final fight will mess with your head.
And
It's a pretty good fight.
Yeah, I think we can all agree the climax is one of the best of any Marvel
definitely.
movie. It was stunning.
It rivals the Avengers, I would say.
I would say it beats the Avengers, honestly.
Compared to all the other Marvel movies, that's a very big problem that they have definitely with climax. Iron Man didn't really have much of a climax. The Avengers had, somewhat of a climax. It was just, CGI fighting.
It was
this one, it really feels like an end battle. It feels like that they really try to achieve something, that they really are fighting. It's not just laser beams. Okay.
This movie stars Chris Hemsworth, Natalie Portman, Tom Hiddleston, Christopher Eccleston, Anthony Hopkins, amongst others.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yes, and it starts off with kind of a Man of Steel kind of copying kind of thing. It starts off with well, I mean, it's a prequel, so
the titular Dark World definitely reminded me of Krypton.
Yeah, we all got a really Kryptonian vibe from the very first off. Like, I remember within a minute in, it was a...
That's Krypton right there.
I like Krypton and Man of Steel, so I thought that was alright.
Yeah, the CGI I thought on a whole was very good, but unfortunately in the first couple scenes on the Krypton-looking Dark World, it looked pretty darn cheap. I'm not gonna lie. It was a little underwhelming.
Yeah, there were times I thought where the animation quality dropped a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, there were also moments that were visually mind blowing. There are so many of those that really makes up for a couple basic filmmaking flaws and just a crappy edit here and there, and maybe one or two explosions not connected to the thing that's blowing up, or just some weird little. I mean, they've got tons of lasers and explosions to manage, so you can't really blame them for that. But yeah, I mean, there are a couple of flaws we noticed like that. No big deal.
So the beginning of the movie takes place with a war that took place before the first Thor movie, which basically sets the scene for the second Thor movie. It basically involves Dark Elves and Asgardians fighting off against each other while the Dark Elves are trying to retrieve this dark energy called ether, which basically has the power of all destruction.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that because I thought that the retelling of the Great Battle was similar to the first Thor, and I definitely like that because I thought it connected the two films thematically, something that was really important because I think beyond that there's not really much that connects them. So it was good to see that there was something similar in common that to be found. So yeah.
Yeah, if you bring up oh, go ahead then.
Well, I was gonna say real quick, and then from there it just goes into just trying to prevent the Dark Elves from retrieving ether and turning the world back into darkness.
Yeah. Joe, when you bring up connections, I think that's a good point because there are several other moments, even though it's a totally different movie and it's got its own style, there's some moments of genuine familiarity that I felt, harken back to the first one a little bit, and you're like, oh yeah, I feel sort of comfortable in this world. Like, they established Asgard beautifully in the first one, I thought.
A lot better than the first, I think.
Well, in the first one, they established it really well. In this one,
Yeah.
it looked the exact same in some ways, but they put it to better use. They expanded the
Yeah.
universe and made it feel you felt at home in Asgard by the end of this movie.
Yeah, I agree.
And
I agree.
when big stuff happens in it, because a lot of the big action sequences happen on Asgard, not in Earth, it's really impressive, and you feel it.
Yeah.
Yeah, throughout the whole movie, you can see Penn just going like this, the feels.
Oh, yeah. I do
Yeah.
that a lot.
Penn had a lot of feels during
Feels
this
meter?
movie. He had a lot
Up
of
there.
It's over 9,000! Hey!
Yeah, a lot of
More than that high, but, yeah.
Ryan, anything you gotta say about story and connecting to the first movie at all?
Okay, I didn't actually complete the original Thor movie because for me, it was, I understood why it was made, and it was more for a reason for the Avengers to be made. With Thor 2, I gotta say, it could just because I think that Christopher Eccleston is the man, but I felt really more engrossed in the story than I have in really any other Marvel movie to this day. And I felt that was a very good, main setup, and I really loved how they would incorporate Asgardian, ideas and just make this entire world based off of, because like Penn said, when they show, Asgard, yeah, it's a little bit cheap here and there, it has a lot to do with Krypton, but it's a world. You can see that somebody, had hard work and thought out this entire place. That's what I can say.
Yeah.
So overall, story was very well put out for this movie, and my thoughts, I think it worked really well.
Yeah.
Even though there were some spots that it's like me. My favorite character, Loki.
Oh yeah.
Let's be honest here. He supplies a lot of comedy for this movie, and I enjoy every single time he speaks. It's just so funny, just so much and so much meaning too. Like he does a lot of sometimes it'll be funny, sometimes it'll be serious, sometimes it'll just be joking around. But that's what I like about Loki, because he's a very broad character that does a lot of different stuff. So that's why Loki is my favorite.
Okay, so my favorite character also hands down is Loki. Like Dennis said, he is freaking hilarious in a lot of ways. But not only does he add a ton of comic relief, but the guy's insight and intellect in this movie is through the roof, and that's what made him a great villain in the Avengers and translates back into this one. And every time he's on screen, I just can't wait for him to say his next line, because I know it's either going to be hilarious or really insightful, or just I'll get a ton out of just hearing him talk. Tom Hiddleston's a great actor.
Definitely.
Totally embodies the role. And Loki plays a lot into the emotional context of this movie, and you really care about him. So when he matters on screen, he really does to you.
Yeah.
So, nice job, Tom Hiddleston. Loki's the man.
Loki is Loki.
Brian, what about you? What's your favorite character?
I hate to be unoriginal here. Also has to be Loki. But actually, it was the banter between him and Thor, because you could hear they had great chemistry together, and they were really not exactly funny. I didn't think that movie was that funny, but I really thought that it was interesting and it grabbed my attention, because the banter that they have it's great, and I thought that really was a great attribute for the movie.
All right, I'm gonna have to list a few characters because we've only talked about one so far. First one I'd like to mention is Chris Hemsworth. I think he's
The Thor.
Yeah, I think he's pretty much he's gotten really good at playing Thor, and he's expanding it too. So really Thor also has his moments where he definitely shines, and I definitely like that. Okay, the other two, actually there's two more, but I'm just gonna group them as one. The two I'd like to mention are Odin and Frigga. Those two were great, but in their own ways. First of all, Odin, Anthony Hopkins. I definitely like how his character, he became a bit more active because you kind of got to see the multi-layered parts of being a king, and I just thought when he was talking, I felt like he had the duties of a king, but also he cared for his subject and his son.
Yeah.
And other one, Frigga, definitely that was great. The way she cares for Loki when no one else does at the beginning. It's definitely, I love it, and I think that she has, probably one of the best characters in the movie, side characters at least. So yeah, definitely those two along with Thor. And everyone else is great too, I'd say.
Okay.
Everyone else is pretty good.
There wasn't a single character really that I thought didn't do a good job or didn't need to be there.
Yeah.
I like to quickly brush up on the action scenes. This movie is crazy with action. Oh my god, especially the final fight, the climatic end. It messes with your head, yes, but it's so epic. It's just awesome. And then every other fight scene is always filled with action, filled with awesome, just kicking butt, mowing people down, Thor using his hammer, and it's just a lot of fun.
Well, yeah. Anyway, I think that one thing that this movie had with the action sequences, a lot of movies this year did not. It was really creative with fight scenes. And it used the worlds and the dimensions to really awesome ways I was never expecting.
Especially in the final fight.
Yeah, the final fight scene.
I'm just gonna say this. thinking with portals done right.
Yes. I don't think it's a spoiler to say that there are a lot of action scenes that just jump between dimensions and use space and gravity and physics
Yeah,
and
it's
weird.
so cool. It's so
Well,
cool.
gravity.
Yeah, but they're done in really, I don't know, creative, intuitive ways that make you think like, hey, people really put thought into this. They really thought out
Yeah, yeah.
how this action scene was going to go, and it's something you've probably never seen before, which is kind of lacking these days. So,
Alright.
yeah.
Right, and now we're going to brush up on some negatives. I personally, there's one character that I found to be kind of okay, was the main dark elf. What was his name again?
Malekith.
Malekith.
Malekith Curse.
The main dark elf, Malekith. Very bland, and he basically represents the stereotypical take over the world kind of thing. Not
I'm
really
evil
much.
because I'm evil.
Exactly, yeah.
Exactly. And I just wish there was more character built into him. He was just this one-dimensional guy who was just like, I want to kill everything.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think the villain was a little bit bland, to be honest. Yeah.
I mean, I think his character was bland, but then other than that, I think he did a good job with like fighting back and like being able to like just look like a total.
He makes a good power threat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Alright, so that's my negatives.
Yeah. Do you have any negatives, Penn?
I mean, same thing for me. The villain and a couple sequences regarding him just felt kind of, I guess, dashed off. His character felt like literally they just put. It was like a fill in the blank. All right, we need a villain here, so we're gonna plot this guy down into the role with
Pretty
no
much.
context whatsoever.
Pretty much, yeah.
He also didn't have a huge role in the movie.
Yeah,
I mean,
actually.
the story was so focused on the good guys and the main characters, and it did a phenomenal job with all those. That I mean, Malachi didn't get a lot of screen time either.
I know.
And I mean, I kind of forgot about him over the course of the
Yeah.
movie. Like he did not have a big impact on the whole thing.
He actually, all he becomes is really like a catalyst to like move like. Because the real emotional is like the family drama and stuff.
Yeah, it's
And
all
also how Ether is like torturing everyone.
Yeah, it's more good on good drama than good versus evil drama, and that's really effective.
So Malekith is essentially like a catalyst in this movie.
Yeah, he's a catalyst.
Point A to point B.
Yeah, and the force that he creates and all the awesome action sequences, they kind of tips the first domino for falling to get them going. Those are awesome, but he himself doesn't have a very big role, so I mean, it was kind of dashed up.
All right, Brian, do you have any negatives?
I have a lot, not a lot, but I a good amount of stuff to say. That's probably why I wasn't talking about this movie too much, because I didn't want to give the impression I liked it that much. In the end, there were a lot of flaws in the movie. Small stuff, like, for example, there were a lot of apparently beginner mistakes with the editing. But the biggest problem that I have with the movie is one very basic thing. It does not know the difference between a dramatic shift in tone and the progression of scenes. For example, one very big emotional scene that ends with, I'm not going to say who, but something very important. You can probably guess why it's so important. I'm not going to say it. And then immediately they go from this great, very sad, very remorseful scene to comedy. Not once, twice.
Yeah, it's the Bambi effect.
Yeah, it's.
I mean,
Yeah, not only is it
It really takes away from the experience, because you have all this really well-made, well-drawn, well-acted stuff, but then immediately, oh, it's comedy, because, we have to have the kid demographic, because it's for kids.
And there's nothing wrong with comedic relief.
No.
It's just that you should settle in before you
Yeah,
get
I would have appreciated more
I'd
gradual.
say that a little bit. Especially if you shift from basically, I don't know, like genuine tragedy that you're really invested into, scatological joke 30 seconds later. Come on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For me, my real negatives pretty much come from what they said. The bland villain, a few like film flaws that's like you find in like those mistakes of lists.
Yeah.
And what was the other thing? Oh yeah, the comic relief coming in immediately after.
Mm-hmm.
But those were pretty much my only flaws. Everything else was kind of minor, I think.
And now I guess now it's time for the verdict.
All right, time for the
Alright, so
now it's time for our overall verdict, what we think.
Yeah.
So Brian, would you like to decide whether we could work from there?
Well, like I said, I thought that the humor was not exactly the best in the world, especially disappointing for Marvel, because usually they're actually pretty funny with movies such as the Iron Man movie. But combine that with like I said before, the dramatic shifts, it's like going from a really kind of beautiful scene to like fart humor. It's
kind of, yeah.
So all in all, I think give it a 7. I'm sorry if you like the movie. I'm glad if you agree with my opinion. That's great. I feel like that the parts that are holding it back hold it back tremendously. But all in all, it's okay.
So
Dennis, what's your verdict on the movie?
Overall, loved it. I really enjoyed it. Going to go very off on what Brian said by giving it a 9 out of 10 because I'm a huge Marvel fan. I really enjoy Marvel, the action, the comedy, the stories. Overall, love it. All right, Joe.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to go with Dennis on this one. 9 out of 10. I really like this movie. I think it's because, like, first of all, it is darker than the first Thor. It pretty much improves on all the flaws that I had with that movie. Like, the stakes are higher, it's more epic, less comedy. There is comedy, like you said, but there's less of it than the first Thor. It's not as big a focus. I really like that. I say, for me personally at least, probably best superhero film of the year, except for probably the Wolverine.
Yeah.
And so yeah, 9 out of 10 is my thing.
All right.
Cool.
Penn, final comment?
Yeah, I'm probably going to be grading this on a little bit of a different scale than the rest of these guys, because I'm not as huge a comic book fan as any of them are and really don't know that much about them. So I'm just grading this on a regular movie scale up against every other movie I've seen this year. That includes Gravity and whatever else. So I'm going to give this an 8 out of 10 because I think that as far as being a straight up, I don't know, I guess stereotypical Marvel comic book movie in the sense that it is a ton of fun to watch and experience and has some great action, beautiful visuals, but it doesn't have like any enormous intellectual depth or dynamic value just in the ways that some movies can go. So I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10 because it gets every single thing a Marvel movie can get right, almost perfect, nails it, and it doesn't really go far beyond that, so it doesn't get like those extra 2 points on top that I would give it otherwise, but yeah, so solid 8 out of 10 for me.
Alright. So overall, our average would be an 8.25 out of 10.
With a definite recommendation to watch.
Yeah, go
Yes.
see it because
Yeah.
even if it's not the greatest movie you'll see all year, it is probably one of the most fun.
The highlights stand out, and the negatives, well, I said, if you can get by some shoddy times when they switch some scenes, it's a good flick.
Yeah,
But overall, if you're not going to be nitpicky with it, you'll enjoy it.
yeah, the amount of fun you have will way trump the little flaws.
Yeah.
Alright, so that's what we think about Thor 2. I'm Dennis.
I'm Penn.
I'm Joe.
And I'm Brian.
And this has been
Pulp
Science Fiction.
Signing out. See
Later.
ya.
Later, bitch.